Welcome to SPK Speak Sports. On our station, we talk about baseball and sports news, from the most recent stories to the throwbacks. Listen now to Scott, Paul, and Kelly on SPK Speak Sports as they hit the ball out of the park.
You hit the ball out of the park, Speak Sports.
So, guys, I think we've got the ending down for the Field of Dreams sequel. The only thing I think we need to change, instead of having the ladies from The View come out of the corn, that what we do hello, by way of introduction, my name is Scott.
I'm Paul.
I'm Kelly.
And the three of us together are SPK Speak Sports. It's the trifecta. That's what we got going here today. And what we got going here today is Mr. Kelly with his Maya Copa from last week. Take it.
Well, I brought in my broom, I brought in my dustpan, and I'm here to clean up the mess. Now, last week, I had a trivia question. The question was, who hit 2 home runs in 1 inning off the same pitcher?
Grand Slams.
Grand Slams. Who was the hitter? Who was the pitcher? Fernando Tatis Sr. and Chan Ho Park. We got that part right.
What do you mean we?
I got that part right. Then I went on to say about Tommy Lasorda, and the big thing for me was, how could Tommy let this pitcher pitch? Well, we got a little feedback, and we were informed that Tommy Lasorda was not in the clubhouse eating linguine and clams. So the manager was Davy Johnson. And Lasorda had retired in 96, Russell for 2 years, and this was Davy Johnson's first season. Well, in that game, he got kicked out of the game. So he left the pitching changes up to Charlie Huff. Who is Charlie Huff? Well, he pitched 25 years in Major League Baseball. Started with the Dodgers, had his best years with Texas. He played for Florida, and he played for the White Sox. And he was the guy that night, he was supposed to be taking care of the pitching situations. He's also known as the guy that gave up the 3rd home run in the 1977 World Series Game 6 to Reggie Jackson. So that was that. Now, and he's the guy that let Chan Ho Park give up 2 grand slams in 1 inning. And that, I don't think that record's going to be broken.
Charlie was just trying to teach Chan Ho the knuckleball, and nothing was working.
Well, okay. So this is the deal. I came up with another trivia question. This is it. Who's responsible for giving up the 3rd home run in Reggie Jackson's 3-homer game in the World Series? And who let Chan Ho Park give up 2 grand slams? So when you're out there and you want to have give a trivia question, that's a good one. That's I don't think anybody's asked
And
that.
the answer is not Tommy Lasorda.
Right. And so I also want to say, I'm sorry, Tommy, Uncle Tommy.
Yeah, in case you're watching.
If I ever see you, I'll buy you some clams and linguine.
Oh, thank goodness that's been taken care of. Good night, everybody. I got to tell you, though, talk about coincidence. I mean, what are the odds? About 4 days after that, a good friend of mine, Bob, calls me up, and we're just talking and moaning and wailing about the way it was and the way it should be and this and that. And he goes into this question. Scotty, I got a trivia question for you. Who hit 2 grand slam home runs? But before he even finishes the sentence, I go, Fernando Tatis Jr. and Davy Johnson was the manager. He goes, how did you know that? So I gave you credit for that. Also, coincidentally enough, after we finished the show, the podcast. I go to watch my taped Marlins game because I'm a front runner and I'm getting on the bandwagon with the Marlins. And after one of the commercial breaks, they have a little tribute to Satchel Paige, who I talked about.
Right.
So it's like, are these guys monitoring what we're saying? And then the other trivia question was that my friend asked me, which I also happen to know. I mean, I look like Mr. Trivia, and I'm not. I just got lucky. He said, who holds the record? And he said it was in my backyard. He lives in the LA area. And when it happened, who holds the record for the most total bases in one game? And I say, Sean Green, 4 homers, double, single, 19. And he goes, I don't remember a week and a half ago, but I remember that. There's just some time. Paul.
Yeah? Well, you mentioned Satchel Paige. And
I did.
Yeah, and I think that's a great coincidence because there's a very special anniversary happening today and, well, this week. And it's the 100th anniversary of Negro Major Leagues, the existence of the Negro Major Leagues. There were a lot of star players. We know Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell,
Buck O'Neill.
Yeah, I was going to say Buck Leonard. But there were some other guys who were some amazing players. And I have to confess, I don't know a lot about the Negro Leagues. I know that they were actually playing a lot longer than just 100 years ago. 1920 was the first, I guess that's the composition of the maybe 7 or 8 different leagues that composed the Negro Major Leagues. And these are guys who have now become eligible to be elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I think 35 of them are there now.
Wow.
But they had actually been playing since about 1885. Some semi-professional baseball. Some guys were paid, some guys weren't. Industrial leagues, that sort of thing. And there were some really fine players, playing in the Negro leagues, they called them the colored baseball leagues back then, back in Cornelius's day. And if Corny had to face some of the pitching back then, I wonder if he'd have made it. I think so.
Yeah.
But some amazing innovations too from the Negro Leagues. They played night baseball 5 years before Major League Baseball played night baseball, and it was a very practical reason. They wanted to get the working folks into the stands, and they weren't able to say goodbye to factory life during the day and take me out for the ball game.
Right.
They wait till work's off, they punch the clock, and then they were able to get over to the stadium. There was no biggest development, I think, or not development, difference. There was no reserve clause in the Negro Leagues. These guys might be playing for Birmingham this week and Kansas City next week. They played for the highest bidder.
Hired guns.
Pure capitalism.
Yeah.
They were baseball mercenaries, some of them. So
That
anyway.
was the opposite of the major leagues, because those guys were, they were stuck playing for, it's very ironic that they had the freedom to move around, and the major leaguers had to stay with their teams until 1976.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah,
77 maybe.
The other thing I've seen on the videos of Negro League Baseball is the fans on Sunday. They were dressed to the nines.
Oh, absolutely.
They'd go to church and then go to the game.
Right.
So we didn't see any tank tops or flip-flops or shorts. I mean, these people were suits and ties and hats and
Sunday
smoking
best.
pipes, and they were there. Staying in the way back when time, I wish I could remember the guy's name. It was in this month, this date actually in history. So I don't remember his name, but he pitched for the New York Giants. He was taken out this month in 1906. He was taken out in the third inning against the Dodgers, your Dodgers, in 1906. He's taken out in the third inning. That stopped his streak of 187 complete games.
Wow.
This guy pitched 187 complete games, and he also finished 15 relief appearances. So the 15 times he came in relief, he also ended that game.
in my Dodgers defense, I think they were the Brooklyn Bridegrooms at that time.
Probably.
I don't think they were called the Dodgers yet.
When were they the Trolley Dodgers? That was later?
That was
when they had the trolleys. Yeah.
That was a nickname.
But that is definitely a guy that you would call meat. 187 complete. I don't care when it was.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Now, a couple of guys that are definitely, you would call them meat, is Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac with the Cleveland Indians. Wow. So Clevenger decides he pitches 6 innings, shutout ball, doing really well. Indians are in the mix. And he decides he's going to go out and party with family and friends who have come there to see him because they couldn't go to the ball game, obviously.
Right.
And Zach Plesac decides he's going to go with him. So they find out about that, and I love this part of it. The Indians tell Clevenger, okay, well, you're going to have to rent a car and drive back from Detroit to Cleveland. On your own dime, you drive back. Plesac was able to go on the plane because they didn't find out about him. And I'm sorry, it's the reverse. It was Plesac that had to rent the car. Clevenger they didn't find out about until he got on the plane. So he got a free plane ride. But the team met a day or two later. I guess it didn't go well for those guys because they said, you're not on the roster, you're going to the alternate site. Wow. Which is like purgatory in baseball.
That's like getting cut.
So I would have, and I tried to look for this and I didn't see it. So Dan Plesac, Zach's uncle, who was, as far as I've seen on the MLB Network, is a pretty straightforward guy. When he played, hair was short. He knew how to play the game and do it right and everything. I don't know if he's been on the air since then, but I'll bet he didn't give his nephew, too much patting on the back. And then, so those two yahoos followed. That follows a couple of weeks ago where some NBA player, I don't know if you heard about this or not, he gets excused to go to a funeral, but in between wherever he was in Florida and the funeral, he stops off at a strip club. They find out about that. They got to quarantine him. And his excuse was, well, I only stopped there for a few minutes and I had a mask on. So that's like I saw a video on the internet, also known as the World Wide Web. That's how woke I am. And so Clevenger's defending himself, blaming the media. And all the media did was report on this thing. I don't know whether they made this into a real big deal and yada, yada. And I don't know. I mean, they've really hurt the team. You've got the other pitcher who's got Carrasco with a heart deal, so he's a little susceptible. One of the other pitchers has a young baby, could be susceptible. So they really let those guys down. And I think whatever they need to put the hammer down on them. That was just...
I know. Plesac got a call from his agent. His agent said, I've got some good news and bad news. Good news is I got you an endorsement from Hertz. Bad news is they're in bankruptcy. Sorry, I digress.
Oh, my gosh. But and also, now Baltimore's 12-8. Baltimore
break them up.
Break those guys up, the Marlins up, and we got something going. So they're in the mix. Cardinals have now played 7 games.
Right.
They're 4-3. They moved up the ladder. They're now in second place because of the 2 games they played and won. And I got an idea because they got to play 55 games in 47 days. So they're going to have to play a lot of 7-inning doubleheaders. Yeah. So I think for them, and actually if you do it for them, you got to do it for everybody. 8 in 8. If you play one game, 9-inning game, if you're ahead by 8 runs if you're the home team and visiting team gets their ups in the top of the 8th, game over. Visiting team's leading, bottom of the 8th, you're leading by 8, game over. And with doubleheaders, it's 8 after 6.
So that's a mercy rule.
That's a high school mercy rule, kind of readjusted because that's 10 runs there. Wow. And here's the other thing I was thinking of. You talked about your home run thing in the 10th inning. Yeah. What about this? Make it even faster. You get each each team gets their fastest guy. And they go from home all the way around to home.
There you go.
And whoever is the fastest, game over.
That's like the guy in Atlanta where they had the guy challenge the fans, and the guy would be in the outfield on the warning track, and they would send the guy, and then this real fast sprinter in this uniform. He had like this captain, I don't know, it was like a white uniform. And then he's real like a sprinter. And then he tries to come around and beat the guy before they get to the home plate or whatever. And
Remember when Willie Davis played for the Angels briefly?
yeah,
Willie
yeah,
Davis?
yeah, yeah,
And I think Dan Ford was a pretty fast guy, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Ford says to Davis, who was a speedster, he says, "Hey, old man, I heard you were fast once upon a time." And Davis says, "Anytime, foul pole to foul pole." And he smoked him.
Really?
Yeah, and he was 40.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's great. You know,
3-dog.
here's a variation on what I just said about that. Is they used to have this before, in between games or something. They used to have like milking cows, and I'm not saying who,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
gets the most milk wins the
Yeah.
game, but they used to have a thing where they would put. I think this was after the game or something. Keep the fans
Like
there. They would
between
put two
double
guys-
headers, they would do that.
Well, or
yeah,
I don't think it was between doubleheaders because of what they did, but they'd have a guy from each team, and they'd blindfold him, and they'd put him at second base, and they'd have him twirl around
Oh,
about
yeah.
8 or 12 times and try and see who could get to home plate. Of course, you
Oh,
might
God.
be there a while
Oh,
because
that's
one
right.
guy's going to end up right field, and another
Yeah.
guy's going to end up in the stands. But there's just variations. Also, done. These guys are done. Pirates are done. Worst record in baseball. They're done. I mean, I know it. A third of the way through
Third
the
of the
season.
way.
What about
Isn't
Boston?
the season going quick?
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
like it just started,
Right.
and we're a third of the way through
Yeah.
the
You
season.
got any
Yeah.
surprises so far? I mean, the third of the way through the season, there's some big time surprises.
Well,
for me.
Orioles and the Marlins. I mean,
Cubs.
and
How about
also
individuals? Anybody?
Oh, I would say like a surprise, like they're not usually.
Like I'm a Dodger fan.
Yeah.
Max Stassi.
I'm looking
well,
at Cody
yeah,
Bellinger.
yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say
Like this,
him. Yeah,
2 nights ago,
Yeah.
I thought about this. I
Yeah.
said, "Oh my gosh, we're a third of the way through the season." And then, of course, he hits 2 home runs, and the next day he gets two base hits. So
he just has to face more Angel pitching. He has to face their bullpen, and he'll shoot right up.
So Pirates are done. Red Sox, in my opinion, are done. Giants done. Marlins are done, and
The Angels.
these guys done.
Yeah, I read a thing where a writer said they're underachieving. I'd say that's putting it lightly.
you're going to have sub 500 teams in a 16 team playoff. So
Well,
not all is lost.
But like the Angels would have to win, they're going to have to win like 25 of the next 40 games, and that's not undoable, but not the way they've been playing so far.
with that bullpen, it's undoable because you can't have a manager that relies on your weakest part of your team, and he's using 7 pitchers a night or something like that. It's just ridiculous.
Speaking of Bruce Bochy. So smooth, huh?
Yeah.
Our transitions.
Segue.
I would want to mention this for a couple weeks, and I looked it up to see how big Bruce Bochy's head size is, and it's anywhere from 8 1/4 to 8 1/8 to 8 1/4. And the reason I say it's because when I first heard about this years ago, they said, how big is his head? That his batting helmet would hold a 6-pack of beer with ice.
Jeez.
And his head was so how big
Big, what's it?
that every time he was traded, he had to take his batting helmet with him to the next team, and they would paint it the color because they didn't have anything that size. And I assume, since I think he was a catcher, that he always wore his bat. I mean,
Yeah.
the other thing, you'd have to get the soft cap that size.
Yeah.
So there's a large cranium
I'm
right
feeling
there.
a little self-conscious here because I'm an 8, and buying a cap is pretty tough for me.
7 3/8. What about you?
7 1/4. I think.
There you go. Okay. Well,
Buffalo head.
that's why he's known as the freak. All right. Who has something that's even more relevant than Bruce Bochy's head size?
Okay, I was looking at some stats today, and Bieber,
Yeah,
he's 4-0,
1.3.
but Dylan Bundy of the Angels is doing. He would be another guy you would think maybe in the running for Cy Young, and then you have Garrett Cole, and here's a guy that got a tremendous amount of money, and he's going to the Yankees, and he's pitching great. And sometimes these guys that go to New York don't pitch well. Sonny Gray, that's with Cincinnati, is one of those. They got him out of New York because he just, with Oakland, he was really good. Then the Yankees got him, and he didn't, nothing. And so they got rid of him, and he went over to Cincinnati, and he's pitching great, So he's kind of the Ed Whitson, that syndrome where, remember Ed Whitson? He got in a fight with Billy Martin over there. And sometimes these guys don't work out, but when you have the extra pressure of money and then the guy, New York's tough to play.
New York's also a really rough town when it comes to the fans. And this year, Cole's not playing with 50,000 maniacs in the stands.
Yeah, well,
it's a little easier.
Yeah, but still, you got to deal. You got to deal with the press. It just, I don't know. No matter what you do, it never seems satisfied with them. They get on you for everything.
If it wasn't for Bundy, you know who the Angels would be? The Pirates.
Yeah,
they'd be worse than the Pirates.
Yeah.
Also, did you see umpire eject Steven Strasburg in the stands? Strasburg sitting there with his mask next to a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
Umpire ejects him. And he just gets up and goes. And we were talking about that the other day with, now it's like instead of a manager going out and kicking dirt on the umpire and arguing, he just goes, hold on. Oh, okay. Put on the headphones. And then, whatever your decision is, good with me.
Yeah.
But just so this guy ejects a player in the stands.
Strasburg had some lovely verbal parting gifts for the ump.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that part of it. On this date, in 1948, the Raja of Rap, the Mammoth of Maul, the Mauling Mastodon, Babe Ruth passed away.
Oh, wow.
They had 23 different names, and I said, those are ones I'd never heard of.
Wow.
I like that one, that last one, the Mauling Mastodon.
I never heard those.
And the other icon of entertainment, this man right here, Elvis passed away 43 years ago today. You talk about, is there anybody 80 to 8? Maybe there's some people that don't know who Babe Ruth was.
Yeah.
Everybody knows
They
who
could have had a
Elvis.
heck of a hot dog eating contest. Those guys.
What? How old was Elvis when he died?
He was 42.
Oh, so he's been dead longer than he was alive.
Yeah. I can remember I was on a radio station in San Bernardino playing the hits, and I was on 10 to 2, midday.
Yeah.
Came home, lived about 5 minutes away. Came home. My wife left to go get groceries. I never turned on our station. I'd just been playing the hits for 4 hours.
Yeah.
For some reason, I turned on the radio, and we're playing a 20-year-old Elvis song, like Jailhouse Rock. And I go, what is Mike Matthews doing playing this old song? He comes out of it, says how Elvis had died. And I was like, I don't know, for me, I wasn't a big Elvis fan when I was a little kid, but once he got to the comeback special in Vegas, and a couple days later, I had the honor of I put together about a 2-hour special, and every time I turn off the mic and hit the record, we played records back then, I was just bawling.
Yeah.
And then I have to pull it together and turn the mic back on. Finished 2 hours, but a day later, the general manager comes in and says, hey, we got a lot of great response from that. They'd like to hear it again. I didn't tape it. I had to do it again.
Wow.
So
I remember being at home and I was sweeping. We were converting a 3-car garage into a living room, so I was sweeping and it came on the radio, and it's kind of one of those things you remember. It's like, but at that time he seemed 43. I knew it wasn't old, but I realize now. It was really young,
That's a lot of pressure to be that noted, and you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
That's almost like being in a prison.
Right.
I got a quick story about Bob Gibson, not the way it used to be. So Bob Gibson's last pitch that he ever threw was to Peter Marshall's stepson. Remember Hollywood Squares?
Pete Lecoq.
Pete
Yeah,
Lecoq.
Pete Lecoq,
yeah.
Talk about a guy that should have changed his last name. Anyway, so last pitch he throws is a home run to Pete Lecoq. Gibson's taken out of the game, never pitches again. About 10 years later, he's in an old-timers game in Chicago. This is Bob Costas telling this story. And he's pitching an old-timers game. Pete Lecoq comes up. First pitch, Gibson drills him.
Oh, jeez.
And after the game, Costas goes up to Gibson and he says, Gibby, he says, what are you doing? And he says, Robert, sooner or later, the scales must be balanced.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
He was a competitor.
Yeah, a great Hall of Famer.
Guys, got a last couple of things here?
Let's see.
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was watching a Dodger game the other night, and Orel Hershiser does their commentary color, and he said something about, Manny Machado. I think it was Machado.
Manny Machado.
and he had his stirrups showing all the way up, had the knickers just below the knee. And Oral says, when guys wear their pant leg like that, they always look slower to me. And I was thinking, gosh, when guys have the pant leg all the way down to the ankle, they look slower to me.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking about baseball fashion and how much things have changed. Obviously, in Corny's day, they dressed differently. An era right around his, I don't know if it was before or after, because I've never really inquired of Corny when he played, but guys were wearing bow ties while playing. I mean, umpires did that for a long time, but players were wearing bow ties. You have, long pant, short pant. You've got the long stirrup, short stirrup. You had those hats, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the pillbox hats.
Yeah.
That the Pirates wore
had,
back in the 70s.
And they won the series on that, I think. Yeah.
The White Sox
With
back in the
shorts.
70s wore shorts. I think
Yeah.
7 games or
Yeah.
something like that. Can you imagine being told, go steal second?
Yeah.
No thanks, coach.
Yeah.
Well, the production staff says, they're so pushy. We got to wrap it. But I would like to touch on that a little bit more next week
All right, that's fine.
regarding the Yankees and uniforms. But speaking of the Yankees, and I was thinking this, I had some of these quotes from Satchel Paige last week. Yeah. Can you imagine if Satchel Paige had been on the Yankees in the 50s with Yogi and Casey?
Wow.
Those 3 guys. I mean, it was enough just with Yogi and Casey.
Yeah.
But Yogi had one quote, which I love. I guess one of his players, one of the younger players in the dugout before the game, he said, "Hey, Skip, did you ever play?" And Stingle said, "Sure, I played. Did you think I was born at the age of 70, sitting in a dugout trying to manage guys like you?" Anyway, if you remember nothing else today, Charlie Huff was the manager when Tatis Sr. hit those. Charlie Huff. Hough, I think.
Knuckleballer.
All right, on behalf
right.
of Paul and Kelly, I'm Scott. Thank you for watching SPK Speak Sports.
You hit the ball out of the park with SPK Sports. You hit the ball out of the park with Scott, Paul, and Kelly. You hit the ball out of the park, Speak Sports.